Imagine spending your entire life working, saving, and sacrificing, all for your family, only for your own son to tell you you're not welcome at Christmas. That happened to me. But instead of arguing, I quietly reached for my phone, and by the time the snow melted, his life and his mortgage were in ruins. I was sitting on my son's couch, the faint smell of cinnamon-scented candles in the air, watching him pretend to listen as I talked about making my famous turkey this year. "It's the same one your mother loved," I reminded him, smiling at the memory of my late wife's face lighting up every December when she tasted that golden, juicy roast. I thought it might bring a flicker of warmth to his eyes too. But instead, Michael's posture changed. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw tightened. He cleared his throat like he was about to deliver bad news to a stranger. "Dad, about Christmas," he began, carefully choosing each word like it was a landmine he was trying to avoid. "We're not expecting you this year." It took a second for the words to land. "Not expecting me." I laughed softly, thinking it was some kind of awkward joke. "You mean you've got other plans for the 25th? Michael shifted in his seat, his gaze darting toward the kitchen where Isabella's voice floated in from somewhere, giving sharp instructions to someone on the phone. "No, Dad, I mean, you're not invited." The words hit harder than I thought they could. I stared at him, searching his face for the boy I'd raised, the kid who used to wait for me at the window when I came home from work, who once burst into tears when I was 5 minutes late. "Why?" My voice cracked. He sighed. "Isabella's parents are coming, and they'd prefer if it was just family. Just family." I opened my mouth to remind him I was family. The one who raised him, the one who sacrificed everything for him. But the way he was looking at me told me the words would bounce off like rain on glass. "It's just easier this way," he added. "They have their own traditions." I looked around the living room. Their living room, the one I'd paid for. The silk curtains, mine. The polished hardwood floors, mine. The elegant crown molding that Isabella had insisted on, mine. And in the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of that shiny, top-of-the-line mixer, the $1,201 she had to have, collecting dust like a decoration in a museum. Also mine. My chest tightened. "So where exactly am I supposed to be on Christmas Day?" He gave a weak smile. "Maybe you could visit Aunt Rosa, or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. Like Christmas was just another date you could shuffle around on a calendar. I stood up slowly. My legs felt heavier than they should have. As I walked toward the door, I passed by the wall of family photos. In every recent picture, I was further away, fading into the background until I wasn't there at all. When I reached the door, I turned back one last time. "Tell Isabella's parents," I said. "Feliz Navidad." Then I stepped into the icy December air, my breath visible in the cold, my hands shaking. From the chill or from rage, I couldn't tell. I sat in my truck for a long moment, my phone buzzing in my pocket. Michael, probably trying to soften the blow with a half-hearted follow-up. I let it ring. Instead, I started the engine and drove. Every mile that passed, I replayed the years in my head, the $140,000 I'd given them over the years, the times I'd drained my retirement to help them buy this very house, the second mortgage I'd taken out when Michael lost his job, just so they wouldn't lose theirs, and Isabella's endless must-have purchases that I'd quietly covered. I thought about all the nights I went to bed worrying about bills while they posted vacation photos from Italy, smiling with champagne in hand. And in that moment, one thing became clear. All those sacrifices, they meant nothing to them. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove aimlessly, letting the December lights blur into long streaks through the windshields. Every glowing reindeer on a lawn, every twinkling strand on a roof, every inflatable Santa, all of it mocked me. Families together, warm laughter behind frosted windows, and me, cast out. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the clock read past midnight. My house, my old, tired, creaking house, was dark and cold. I hadn't bothered decorating in years. What was the point? Christmas had become something I gave away, not something I kept for myself. I sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm coffee, staring at the stack of bills I'd been avoiding. My latest bank statement sat right on top. The numbers were ugly. I was one bad month away from losing this house. My retirement, practically gone. And why? Because every time Michael called with just one more thing we need, Dad, I said yes. The memories came in sharp, painful flashes. Michael was newly married, starry-eyed, telling me about the fixer-upper they wanted. Dad, we can make it ours, he'd said. It's just, the down payment is killing us. I didn't hesitate. I pulled from the savings your mother and I had built over decades. The account we called our rainy day fund. I told myself it was for their future, for my grandchildren's stability. I wrote the check with a smile, even though I had to skip my own dental work that year. Michael had lost his job. Isabella was too stressed to look for work. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. Michael's voice cracked over the phone. We could lose the house, Dad, please. I'd just paid off my own mortgage. For 3 whole weeks, I'd been debt-free for the first time in my life. I went right back to the bank and signed for a second mortgage, this time on my home. I told myself it was temporary, just until he got back on his feet. He did get a new job, eventually, but the repayments to me never came. They needed to remodel the kitchen. Isabella said it was embarrassing to host with the old one. $12,000 later, they had marble countertops and a $1,200 mixer that's now a dust collector. I thought about all of it as I sat in that cold kitchen. I thought about the way Michael looked at me earlier, like I was an inconvenience, like I was optional. That night, something in me broke. Not loudly, not in some dramatic fit of rage. It was quieter than that. It was the sound of a switch flipping. For the first time in years, I stopped thinking like a father who would do anything for his son, and I started thinking like a man who'd been used. I pulled out the folder from my desk drawer, the one with all the paperwork for the house Michael lived in, the mortgage agreement, the loan documents, the bank's contact information. I remembered every signature, every dotted line, where I'd put my name to save them. The truth hit me like a slap. Without me, they'd never have that house. Without me, they couldn't keep it. I sat there for hours, the idea forming slowly, taking shape like a snowball rolling down a hill. Small at first, then heavier, unstoppable. By dawn, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And this time, I wouldn't be doing it for Michael. I'd be doing it to him. The morning after my decision, I woke up feeling lighter, not happy, not excited, just clear, like I'd finally stopped treading water and my feet had found solid ground. I brewed my coffee, but this time I didn't sit staring into it. I opened my laptop and began pulling every scrap of financial history related to Michael's house. The mortgage was in my name. Michael and Isabella were listed as residents, not owners. I had the legal authority to alter, refinance, or cancel payments. They probably thought my involvement was symbolic, a technicality from when they needed the down payment. But I'd structured it very intentionally. Your mother and I had learned long ago to keep ownership clean and in our name when we helped family. It protected us if anything went wrong. Now, it was going to protect me again. I called the bank, just reviewing my options. I told the woman on the line. She cheerfully sent me updated statements, payoff amounts, and payment schedules. She had no idea she'd just armed me for war. That afternoon, I paid a visit to my old friend, Charles, a real estate attorney I'd once helped during his divorce. Charles had a memory like a steel trap, and he didn't ask unnecessary questions. I told him I was considering changes to my property portfolio and needed the cleanest way to withdraw my financial involvement in one particular house. Charles leafed through the documents, eyebrows climbing. Dennis, you still own this outright. You could sell it tomorrow. They wouldn't have a legal leg to stand on. I nodded slowly. Good to know. I didn't breathe a word of this to Michael. In fact, I called him that evening and acted like nothing had happened. I asked about work, about the kids' school play, even offered to drop off some leftover soup. He seemed relieved I wasn't still upset about Christmas. For the next week, I played the role of the forgiving father. I even went over one Saturday to help fix a squeaky door hinge in their guest room. While Isabella bustled in the kitchen, I wandered into the living room and ran my fingers over the ornate crown molding, the one ID paid for. She glanced up and gave me that polite smile she reserved for company she tolerated but didn't invite. It was almost funny. She thought she was being gracious. She had no idea I was mentally packing every item in this house into a moving truck. If I wanted maximum impact, it had to be close enough to Christmas that they wouldn't have time to scramble for a backup plan, but not so close that legal delays could spoil the effect. I circled December 20th on my calendar. That was the day I'd walk into the bank, terminate the mortgage payment, and initiate the sale process. They'd get the notice right before Christmas Eve. Their perfect holiday. Their curated traditions. Their cozy fireside plans. All of it would come crashing down. And I'd make sure everyone knew why. December crept forward like a hunter in the woods. Each day I wore the same mask. The polite father. The doting grandfather. While inside, I counted down to the kill shot. The trick to revenge isn't speed. It's patience. Let them relax. Let them think the danger has passed. People only notice the water is boiling when it's already too late. One chilly Tuesday evening, Michael called. "Dad, small thing. Could you cover the next mortgage payment? We had some unexpected expenses." My jaw tightened. Unexpected expenses. Code for Isabella buying herself something shiny. I knew the pattern, but my voice stayed warm. "Of course, son. I'll sort it first thing tomorrow." What I didn't say, "It will also be the last payment I ever make for you." That call was my confirmation. They still believed they could dip into my generosity whenever they pleased. They had no idea the very foundation of their life was already shifting under them. The next weekend, I attended a neighborhood gathering, the kind Isabella loved to flaunt. The host, Linda, pulled me aside. "Dennis, I heard from Isabella that you won't be joining them for Christmas this year." "That's a shame." I sipped my cider. "Oh, that's their choice, Linda. Isabella wanted her family to have the house to themselves. I respect that." I let the words hang in the air. Respectful, but heavy. Linda frowned. "After all you've done for them." "That's surprising." "Good." I needed whispers to start spreading. By the time my plan hit, I wanted their friends and neighbors primed to notice when the cracks appeared. A few days later, I offered to take the grandkids for ice cream. Isabella hesitated. She didn't like me having one-on-one time without her filter in place. But she eventually agreed. Over Sundays, my oldest granddaughter asked, "Grandpa, why aren't you coming for Christmas? Mommy said you don't like being around her family." I smiled gently. "Oh, sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense to everyone. But I'll always love you." I wasn't planting resentment in the kids. That would be cruel. I was planting questions. Kids carry those questions home, and questions are termites in the walls of a marriage. On December 10th, Michael called again, only this time his voice was tense. "Dad, the bank called me today. Something about reviewing the mortgage account. Is everything okay?" I made my tone just the right mix of confused and dismissive. "Oh, they probably just need updated paperwork. I'll handle it." That tiny seed of worry would fester. By Christmas week, that worry would grow into full-blown panic because the ice under their feet wasn't just cracking anymore. It was about to give way. December 18th arrived cold and sharp, like the air before a snowstorm. My calendar was clear except for one red-circled task. Bank appointment, 10:30 a.m. I dressed carefully, not in work clothes, not in my weekend sweater. A dark wool coat, leather gloves, the sort of outfit you wear when you're about to bury something or someone. The branch smelled faintly of pine from a little artificial tree in the lobby. I shook hands with Karen, my account manager, and slid the folder across her desk. I'm here to terminate the automatic mortgage payments for the property at Pilcade. I gave her the address. Her fingers paused on the keyboard. Of course, Mr. Whitaker, do you also want to initiate a sale request for the property? Yes, I said. My voice didn't waver. Effective immediately. And please send notice directly to the residents. Karen looked up, hesitating. That's going to be disruptive, especially this time of year. I held her gaze. That's the point. A few clicks later, it was done. Legally, the house was already in motion to leave Michael and Isabella's control. They'd have 30 days from official notice before proceedings kicked into high gear. I made sure copies of the termination notice were also sent to my attorney, Charles, the HOA board president, the county property records office. It wasn't just about taking the house. It was about making the process visible. When the whisper started, there'd be no confusion about what happened or who pulled the trigger. That night, Michael called. Dad, I don't know what's going on, but we got a weird letter from the bank. It says the payments are suspended. Is this some kind of mistake? I let a long pause hang in the air. Not a mistake, son. Just a change in priorities. He started to protest, but I cut him off gently. Enjoy your Christmas, Michael. We'll talk after. The courier confirmed the official sale initiation letter was signed. At 9:42 a.m., Isabella herself had scribbled her name on the form. By 10:15, my phone buzzed. It wasn't Michael. It was Isabella. Her voice was icy, controlled. Dennis, what is this? Oh, just some housekeeping. You see, I won't be covering your home anymore. Thought you should know before the new year. You can't do this right before Christmas, she snapped. I almost laughed. You're right, Isabella. I can't ruin your Christmas. Only you could do that. When you decided I wasn't welcome, I ended the call. They had 2 days before Christmas to figure out that their perfect, cozy life was now on borrowed time. And I hadn't even shown them the second part of my plan yet. December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. For most people, it's a time for last-minute shopping, wrapping gifts, and maybe baking cookies. For me, it was about wrapping something else entirely, the truth, and delivering it to Michael and Isabella in front of an audience they could never escape. Every year, our neighborhood had a Christmas Eve block party. Everyone came, neighbors, co-workers, friends, even distant family, who just wanted to be part of the cheer. And this year, Michael and Isabella had volunteered to host. Oh, the irony. It was the perfect venue for my gift. Dozens of witnesses, their own chosen spotlight, and no easy way for them to control the narrative. The night before, I printed 30 copies of the official bank termination notice, highlighting the reason: voluntary cessation of payments by guarantor Dennis Whitaker. At the bottom of each, I wrote a short note. Family is a privilege, not an entitlement. Merry Christmas. Dennis. I slipped each copy into a festive red envelope with gold trim. To anyone else, they looked like cheerful Christmas cards. Christmas Eve came crisp and bright, the air smelling faintly of cinnamon and wood smoke. I arrived right on time, dressed in my best charcoal suit and red tie. Understated, but impossible to ignore. The house was decked out perfectly. Twinkling lights, a massive tree in the window, the smell of mulled wine wafting out the door. Michael greeted me with forced cheer. Isabella didn't even fake it, but they had to be polite. After all, the whole neighborhood was watching. Around 7 p.m., once most of the guests had arrived and the chatter was in full swing, I tapped my glass. Before we all settle in for the evening, I said warmly, I brought a little something to share. Curiosity rippled through the crowd. I began walking around the room, handing out the red envelopes one by one. People smiled, thinking they were getting a holiday card from the generous old man they all knew. Then the first gasp, then another. Conversations stalled. Eyes darted from the papers to Michael, to Isabella, then back to me. Linda from next door looked at me with wide eyes. "Dennis, is this real?" I nodded. Every word. After years of support, I was told I wasn't welcome for Christmas, so I decided my money wasn't welcome either. A murmur spread like wildfire through the room. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others, especially those who'd quietly disliked Isabella's attitude, looked downright delighted. Isabella's face turned crimson. "You've humiliated us," she hissed. I kept my voice even. "No, Isabella, I just told the truth. You supplied the humiliation." Michael didn't meet my eyes. "Dad, you could have just talked to me," he muttered. "I did," I said. "You just didn't listen." And with that, I set down my untouched glass of wine, wished everyone a Merry Christmas, and walked out into the cold night air. Behind me, the perfect party was crumbling. Christmas Day came and went, without a call, a text, or even a token apology from Michael. Fine, I wasn't expecting reconciliation. Just watching the slow burn. But the silence wasn't peace. It was the pressure building inside their perfect snow globe before the crack. By December 27th, word had spread far beyond the block. The postman told me he'd overheard people at the local cafe discussing the Christmas eviction. The HOA president emailed me privately, saying, "Frankly, Dennis, you did what many of us wish we'd had the guts to do." Even Michael's colleagues knew. One sent me a LinkedIn message. "Saw the news. Respect." That one made me chuckle. Revenge really does travel in unexpected ways. January 3rd. The bank's formal repossession timeline hit their mailbox. 30 days to settle the debt in full, or the house would be put on the market. No appeals, no extensions. My attorney confirmed. Once the 30 days are up, they're legally out. There's no wiggle room. You've structured it airtight. January 6th, Michael finally called, not to apologize, not to take responsibility, but to beg. "Dad, we can fix this. Just restart the payments, please." Isabella's freaking out. "The kids, I cut 'em off." "You mean my grandkids?" "The ones I wasn't allowed to see because it made Isabella uncomfortable. Tell her I'm still uncomfortable, funding her lifestyle." He went quiet. When he spoke again, there was no more pride in his voice. "We'll lose everything, Michael," I said gently. "You already lost me. The rest is just furniture." By mid-January, the cracks in their life weren't private anymore. The once pristine lawn was brown and patchy. Their luxury SUV was gone from the driveway. Sold off, I assumed, to scrape together cash. The neighborhood gossip was merciless. I didn't participate. I didn't need to. Revenge tastes better when you let other people spread it for you. The bank's deadline expired. At 4:17 p.m., my attorney called. "It's done, Dennis. The property reverts for immediate sale." By February 2nd, a large for sale sign sat in their front yard like a gravestone. They'd been forced to pack up and leave under the watchful eyes of the same neighbors who'd been sipping mulled wine in their living room just weeks before. I didn't gloat. I didn't throw it in their faces. Instead, I sent one last envelope to their new address. A small, plain apartment across town. Inside was a single Christmas card for next year. It read, "Maybe next time you'll think twice about who you lock out. Merry Christmas, Dad." After the dust settled, my home felt different. Not emptier, freer. I didn't realize how much mental space Michael's problems had taken up until they were gone. The weight of paying their mortgage, worrying about their spending, and carrying the guilt of not doing enough had vanished overnight. For the first time in years, my mornings were my own. Coffee by the window. The paper spread out, without a phone buzzing beside it. It was peace, plain and unadorned. Word of what I'd done kept circulating. Some people saw me as cold. Others quietly called it justice. A few even dropped by with baked goods and a knowing nod. Small offerings to a man who'd proven he wouldn't be walked over anymore. I didn't correct anyone's version of events. The truth didn't need defending. Through the grapevine, I learned Michael and Isabella had downsized into a modest 2-bedroom rental. No more granite countertops or imported Italian furniture. She'd gone back to part-time work, and he was taking extra shifts to make ends meet. We didn't speak for months. When he finally did call, it wasn't about money. It was late March. "Dad, I've been thinking about what happened," he said. His voice was cautious, like a man stepping onto thin ice. "I was wrong. About Christmas. About everything. I took you for granted." I stayed quiet, letting him squirm. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he went on, "but I want the kids to know their grandfather. I want to fix that much. I'll see my grandkids," I said, "but understand something. This doesn't go back to the way it was. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your banker. And if Isabella can't live with that, she can stay out of it." He agreed. I could tell it stung him. Good boundaries aren't meant to feel comfortable for the person who's been crossing them. It wasn't the house, or the mortgage, or the public humiliation that was my real revenge. It was the fact that, for the first time in years, Michael understood the value of what he'd lost, and knew he could never fully get it back. That knowledge would follow him far longer than any eviction notice. Next Christmas, I had my grandkids over. We baked cookies, strung lights, and drank cocoa until they fell asleep on the couch. When I walked them out to Michael's car that night, he met my eyes. No words, just a silent acknowledgement that the balance between us had shifted forever. I went back inside, turned off the porch light, and poured myself a whiskey. This Christmas was mine. How a lifetime of sacrifice turned into betrayal, and how I took back my dignity one decision at a time. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you loved and trusted took you for granted? Did you let it slide? Or did you take a stand? Because here's the truth. Revenge doesn't always come in shouting matches or broken plates. Sometimes, the most devastating revenge is simply refusing to be used ever again. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know what you would have done in my place. Hit that like button if you believe no one should have to beg for respect from their own family. Subscribe if you want more stories where karma shows up on time and with interest. And remember, sometimes the sweetest justice is simply living well without the people who thought they owned you. My son banned me from Christmas, so I canceled his mortgage payments. He told me I wasn't welcome at his house for Christmas. After years of paying his bills, funding his home, and sacrificing my retirement, my son and his wife decided I was an inconvenience. That night, I made one phone call, and by the new year, their mortgage payments were gone. But that was just the start of my plan. This is my true story of betrayal, sacrifice, and ultimate revenge. If you've ever been taken for granted by someone you love, this story will hit you hard. Subscribe for more emotionally charged revenge stories where karma always gets the last laugh. Comment below with what you would have done in my place. If you believe respect should never be optional in family, smash that like button.